my fellow gore horror besties. I'm so sorry that I haven't posted in a while. I was really sick, and then this is my third time recording this one because I kept pushing the wrong button, so third time's a charm. So this story was requested from a friend of mine to talk about Rodney Alcala. He has recently come back up in the talks because of a movie that Anna Kendrick just did called Woman of the Hour. It's on Netflix and it's really good. If you haven't watched it, I would highly suggest you do. So this one is gonna start with some trigger warnings. Just know listener discretion is advised. This is gonna have some rough parts to it. If you're gonna stick to it, then let's get going on it and talk about it. So today we're gonna be talking about Rodney James Alcala. He actually was born Rodrigo, but he goes by Rodney. So we're gonna just call him Rodney or Alcala. So Rodney was born on August 23rd, 1943 in San Antonio, Texas. He did have a troubling childhood, as most serial killers do. His mom wasn't around much. His dad left. He just had a strained relationship with his mother. So he ended up enlisting into the army when he was old enough in the 1960s, where he worked as a clerk. They said he had a really high IQ, reported to be around 135, which I guess is really good. That contributed to his ability to charm and manipulate people throughout his life, which he was really good at, from what I'm seeing. So he was discharged in the army, but they did have a lot of concerns about his behavior. They said that he was just controlling and manipulating, and he just gave off a lot of really weird vibes. So when he got discharged from the army, he ended up moving to LA, where just he went wild. Everything that he did was starting in LA. So when he moved to LA, he ended up going to UCLA and studying film. He used his photography to play a role in his crimes, as he would often use photography as a way to lure women into vulnerable situations before attacking them. He would say, like, hey, I'm a photographer, like, let's take some pictures of you. And then he would viciously attack these up So he was a serial killer, convicted, and a convicted sex offender. He was ended up being sentenced to death in California for 5 murders, but they're estimating that he had at least 130 women that he murdered, attacked, everything like that, but they could only convict him of 5. So he had charges from 1977 to 1979 that were based out of Los Angeles, Wyoming, New York. He was indicted for the Wyoming murder, though, and he was never charged with it. So then he did some time and he got let go. But he was linked to all these murders, and he still appeared on a show called The Dating Game. He was a contestant where they go on and they talk about they finding a dating game. Like this woman, she talked to 3 men and things like that to try and figure out. So he was a convicted sex offender who still got on this show. And it is absolutely wild. So he went on this show with the contestant. Her name was Cheryl Bradshaw. Thankfully, she did not follow through with this date because she was getting really weird vibes from him. So today I'm going to actually play a clip. It's got a little bit about some clips from the actual episode. Then it talks about another movie that talks about his dating game. So we're going to play that for you, and then we will be back to talk about it some more.
Have a great time together.
It may be the creepiest episode ever on The Dating Game, because this bachelor looking for love back in 1978 is actually a serial killer.
I'm called the Banana, and I look really good.
No one had any idea that Rodney Alcala had already launched his killing spree when he appeared on the popular dating show.
He was a real creepy guy, a real idiot.
Jed Mills was bachelor number 2, and nearly 40 years later, he's still haunted by their encounter.
This creep comes up and he puts his face practically in my face and he says, I always get the girl. When I think about what he said, I always get my girl. He kills him. That's what he's talking about.
What's your best time?
The best time is at night, nighttime.
Why do you say
Despite
that?
Alcala's weird behavior on the dating game, the Bachelorette chose him, but never went on the date because she reportedly found him creepy. Lucky for her, because Alcala would later be found guilty of 7 murders. Investigators believe he may have actually killed up to 130 victims based on photos found on his property.
Say hello to Rodney Alcala.
Now the disturbing story is being made into a movie, Dating Game Killer, airing this Sunday on Investigation Discovery. Check out the eerie resemblance of actor Guillermo Diaz and the real-life serial killer.
He's got no remorse. He's just a dark soul.
The movie shows how Alcala would lure his victims by posing as a professional photographer.
Let's get some test shots.
Detectives say he would toy with his victims, often strangling them and allowing them to regain consciousness before finally killing them.
Please, will you untie me?
Incredibly, he had already served time in prison for sexual assault before he appeared on the dating game. Somehow, the producers of the show overlooked his criminal record.
What are you doing to find my daughter?
Actress Carrie Preston plays the mom of a victim.
He was a convicted rapist when he did the dating game. Mm-hmm. Had served time, and they let him go on national television.
So as you can see, there's another movie. I've never watched it, but I kind of want to check it out. So I might check it out and see what I think from there. I'm really heavy on the agreeing with it is that they let a convicted sex offender go on this show. If Cheryl Bradshaw had not been very open to following her gut, what could have happened to her? And they put her in that danger. And it's disgusting to me that, I don't know, maybe back then they weren't doing background checks or what, but there was, in the movie, it shows that there was somebody that was trying to warn them that he was a murderer, and they wouldn't listen to her. The police wouldn't listen to her. The producers wouldn't listen to her. And I don't know how true that is. I don't know if it's true or if it was based off of just the movie. That's wild to me, and so real suspicious. Then I'm so glad that she followed her gut. Good for you, girl. Always follow your gut if you're feeling unsure about someone, because that saved her life. So Alcala's crimes, they were characterized by brutal nature because he would sexually assault these women, he would strangle them, and then he would take pictures of them to keep. And he had in a storage locker, which we'll talk about that as well, those photos that he had. So his case was notorious for the long period of time that it took to bring in justice for the killing of it and his appearance on a popular game show during his killing spree. Convicted murderer, did time, or convicted sex offender, he did time, and now he's just living his best life on the game show thinking it's all fun and games. So his first known criminal offense was back in 1968 when he was arrested for assault and attempted rape of an 8-year-old girl in Hollywood, California. She got free, thankfully. He served 2 years. 2 years for this because they deemed him rehabilitated because he went through some rehabilitation classes. And they later realized that that was a huge mistake. Very tragic mistake on their part. So they let him go after 2 years. So 1970, he just escalated. His behavior was out of control, and he would go on to commit a series of brutal murders and assaults during across multiple states. That's how they say that the women of at least 130, they just can't prove them. So at the time of being on that show, he had completed several murders that were being actively investigated as well. He was on the radar. They were investigating him. He had cheered to be charming and he really impressed her. Cheryl really was impressed by him until she met him in person because his smooth demeanor and he was confident. And then she described him as creepy, which he is creepy. So again, her instincts saved her life. The producers and show's audience, they were all unaware but now that everybody knows, they are not happy with how it went. So I want to talk about some of the murders that we do know about. So he was believed to have committed his first crime in 1971 when he murdered a 23-year-old flight attendant, Cornelia Crilly, in New York City. But his killing spree did not intensify until 1977, when he began abducting, raping, and murdering young women and girls, with his approach as posing as a photographer, offering modeling opportunities. Let me take photos of you. You're so beautiful. I'll make you feel confident. Like, making these women feel comfortable, and then attacking them viciously. So I am going to apologize in advance if I say any of these names wrong. I don't mean any disrespect on the names or the families. So his known victims, some of them were Cornelia Crilly, which was the 1971 flight attendant. Then there was Ellen Jane Hoover, 1977, a 23-year-old aspiring music conductor who disappeared in Manhattan. Then there was Jill Barcombe, a 16-year-old girl from New York City who was found strangled to death. Georgia Wickstead, a 27-year-old woman in California. Christine Ruth Thornton, she was 1977. She was a 28-year-old pregnant woman who went missing from her ranch. Her murder was unsolved up until they found Alcala's stash of photos. He had photos of her, which led to solve her murder. Then Shirley Ledford, 1977, a 19-year-old woman who was murdered. They said particularly heinous, like it was bad. Her body was being discovered after she was raped and strangled. But her murder, they said, is mostly known among his crimes after he was on the dating game. So then there was Charlotte Lamb. She was a legal secretary in Santa Monica. Jill Parenteau, 1979, who worked in computer programming. She was killed when she was 21 years old. Robin Samso, she was in 1979. She was a 12-year-old girl who was abducted and murdered by Alcala. She was just riding her bike from the motel her parents were living at to her ballet class, and he coaxed her to get into his vehicle, and then he brutally murdered this 12-year-old girl. So those are the known victims. There was several survivors who did survive his attacks. There was Tali Shapiro. She played a pivotal role in testifying against him in 2010. She was a second grader who was walking to school, and she was abducted from him. So but she got let go. Like, she got away from him. She didn't get let go, but she got away from him, thankfully. Morgan Roman, she was 16 years old when he raped her and attempted to murder her after meeting at a nightclub. But thankfully, a friend of hers saved her life that night. And then there was one victim, Monique Hoyt. I cannot find really anything on her. All I know is that she escaped after being attacked. Her stories is one of the ones that's present in the new Woman of the Hour movie. I can't, again, find really anything on her, so I'm not sure if that is just strictly in the movie or if that's a real life thing. Maybe they changed the name. In the movie, she had a name named Amy, so maybe... I'm not sure what's going on with that one. What I do find out, like what I do know though, is she was talked into taking photos. He beat her, strangled her, raped her, and then she convinced him to trust her to thinking that they could be in a relationship together. And then she got her getaway. So she survived. Amazing. These women, like, it's so sad that they should even have to be in any of that situation. And I'm glad that she worked so hard to make sure that he would be put away. But his case was just long. It dragged out. So his first conviction was a first-degree murder in 1980 for the murder of Shirley Ledford. And he was sentenced to death. But then this conviction was overturned in 1986 due to prosecutorial misconduct. And then in 1986, it was retried, and he was convicted again, but then the California Supreme Court overturned the conviction in 2001, citing jury selection process issues. So then he was let go again. And then in 2010, he was tried again for the murders of several women, was convicted, and he was sentenced to death. Again. That one stuck. From what I'm seeing, there was nothing else after that. So Alcala was sentenced to death. He ended up dying in California of natural causes at the age of 77 on July 24th, 2021. He spent a lot of time going back and forth with the legal courts, and it is crazy to me how he was just under the radar, and then the California Supreme Court, they just kept letting him go like that. And I saw a lot of things that women just really felt that he was charming, he was good looking, he was sweet talking, and so that's how he was able to manipulate a lot of vulnerable women. But it seems like he went for a lot of really young women, and it's really unfortunate. And so his case, it just makes a lasting impact on discussions about serial killers, criminal justice, and media representation of crime. He appeared on a live television, which just continues to be the point of fascination and horror. Like, it illustrates the duality of his public persona versus his private actions. He put himself out there on national TV. He put himself out there. He did not care at all. And so his crimes and his life, it's just a reminder of the complexities of human behavior and the challenges that the criminal justice system faced, because there was a lot of challenges with this getting justice. There was too many little hiccups during this. He blended so well into society while still committing heinous acts, and it raises the important question about the nature of evil and the effectiveness of the law enforcement preventing such crimes. Now, I know that this was back in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, so things could be a lot different now. I'm really hoping that anybody that's going to be on these game shows, that they do a background check, that they make sure that they're a good person, because they really put so many people in danger, especially Cheryl Bradshaw. They put her in danger by being on that show. So I would check out, again, Woman of the Hour on Netflix. Check out that other movie, The Dating Game, and let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Let's talk about it. Do you think that the justice system failed? Do you think that it didn't fail? Like, what are your thoughts on Rodney? What do you know about it? So follow me. I have an Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. Let's talk about it. And I will talk with you all soon. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, and please stay safe out there. Thank you.